Hey, well, welcome to the Poetry Box Live and happy National Poetry Month. I'm Shawn Aveningo Sanders, and we are thrilled that you could join us today to celebrate poetry. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, my husband Robert and I run an independent press here in Portland, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box, where we enjoy working with writers from all over the country to usher their beautiful poems into the world. The Poetry Box Live is our way of supporting our talented authors to help them connect to a broader audience. You know, poetry is such a powerful art form. It can lift us up with grand celebration, pluck a petal of joy from the mundane, and has the power to build a more compassionate world by urging us to look beyond our own lives. Through poetry, we can find connection as we grieve, pay tribute to our ancestral roots, and praise the communion of marriage. Robert and I are excited to present three delightful poets for you today. Their new chapbooks were just released yesterday, so you'll be the first to hear many of these poems. Our three featured poets for today's show are Stephanie Marcellus joining us from Nebraska, Parris Krauss reading to us from Virginia, and Janet Steward joining us from the state of Washington. So let's get started with our first featured poet. Stephanie Marcellus is the author of How to Say, which offers poems to help us navigate through difficult times, cope with grief, and celebrate the beauty and strangeness of the world around us. Stephanie is a professor of English at Wayne State College. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Colorado State University and a PhD in 19th-century British literature from the University of South Dakota. Her work has appeared in Plainsongs, Three Drops from a Cauldron, Alligator Juniper, as well as two other chapbooks. She lives in Wayne, Nebraska with her husband, two cats, and a dog, and she enjoys spending time on the family farm, being out in nature, and finding time to read in her hammock. Please welcome Stephanie Marcellus.
Thank you so much for that introduction and for having me here today to read. It was a real joy to get this box in the mail and open it up and see the fine work that you did on this, and just so fun to see these poems in print. So the collection is called How to Say, and it is a work that every poem is a how-to poem of some sort. So it's kind of using that idea of how to do something can be a metaphor for something else in life. So I thought I would read a few poems from this and then finish up with a new poem that I haven't read before anywhere else. So we'll see how that goes. So the first poem in this collection is called How to Sharpen a Knife. And it's an introduction to the idea of some of the difficulties of writing sometimes. How to sharpen a knife. Find the right angle to draw the entire length of the word across the bottom of all your unglazed surfaces until hard edges and curveless sides form. Clean up the shavings of vowels, move the fricatives forward until your history reads as a series of prickly spines. Let the razor blade corners take up residence on your tongue, taste the steel's burr on your lips, then let the words fall. Heavy as anvils, hard as hail on the tinned roof of the page. Sharpen the words until you're happy. Sharpen the words until they hurt. Thank you. The next poem I'll read, there's a couple in here that are just kind of about what it's like to live in a home that first time home and, making it your own, painting things, fixing things, building floors, that kind of stuff. So there's a couple poems that I'll read that are related to that. This one's called How to Paint a Bedroom. The painter said, you need to learn something about technique, about how to avoid the messes you're always getting yourself into, the sags of paint running down your walls, the darker colors always bleeding through. Little Red Riding Hood's cape is not the best choice, my dear, for the southern lit bedroom. You want a cooler color, perhaps bluebird morning, wings of Pegasus, or September aster, something with less heat, less passion, he said. And here's another thing. You can't just open a can of paint and haphazardly slop it onto the walls. You need to learn that every can of paint is composed of its own nature, and every brush has its own personality. Eggshell is not high gloss, and natural hair is not the same as synthetic. There are consequences to making such assumptions. You must learn to mask, to cut in, to crosscoat, to feather. You must learn patience, to let the wall breathe and cure before painting another coat. Maybe then, if you've been careful enough, you'll have a masterpiece. You will have learned how to avoid curtains of bluebird morning running down the walls like permanently unchecked azure streams. You will have learned to avoid hollowed out fish eye craters pooling in the corners, the crow's feet etching down from the ceiling like unintended consequences. You have learned something about discipline. Thank you. This next poem is in the same vein, and it's called How to Dance. We measure and cut. I measure, you cut. Our dance steps precise to the rhythm of the blade. The jigsaw steps through, the wooden plank spins down to the unfinished floor. Measure and cut. Measure twice, cut once. A mantra of care runs through our heads. I draw the line across the plank. You trace it with a jagged blade. My knees ache from kneeling on our basement's cement floor. Your safety goggles have fogged over, and July's humidity has bent a stray curl in front of your eyes. It's nearly as hot as the day we married 13 years ago. Novices with power tools, we don't know what we're doing, but we measure and cut to a choreography of sawdust and sweat. Thanks. I'll read another one kind of about, I guess, the home. This one's called How to Water the Yard. Untangle the garden hose, coiled serpentine at your feet. Untwist the Gordian knot by dragging the many-jointed snake, yellow, green, and even gray, across your yard and halfway into the neighbor's. Then to straighten out a kink, beware the grass netting that usually ensnares your foot. Not today, Monday. Pick up the snake by its limp, rubbery skin. Attempt to unfasten it at one of its joints. Look down at the browning grass, then up at the sky. It's a special kind of hazy, not clouds or smoke, but fine microparticles of Saharan dust that's traveled over 7,000 miles to make your eyes itch. Realize you're incapable of severing the snake by yourself. Feel the sprinkler stare at you with its many accusing eyes. Thank you. I'm going to read a couple more from this book that were written about the farm I grew up on. So I was the third generation to live on this farm, and my dad still lives there and farms, and he's 91 years old. And so it's very much a home. And so there's some poems that are greatly inspired by that setting. And I'll read one about the mulberry orchards there that were there even before my family moved there. So they're this very old kind of feature on the farm that, great source of fascination for everyone, especially children, going out in the summer and picking those mulberries. So how to pick mulberries. Creep out into the early dusk, just before the deer paw and snort in the brush under the crescent moon, or go in birdsong before the sun rains in its zenith. Take a bucket if you can find one, or a plastic shopping bag if you can't. Think about how your grandmother canned mulberries with pineapple, saved some summer for winter, how your mother made pies, how your father used to shake the fruit tree as you and the rest of the family held the white sheet tight and gathered the fruit together. Think about how, in the end, it's all about being resourceful. Tell your husband about it as you follow the dirt path out behind the old chicken house into the even older orchard. Think about all the children who used to eat mulberries under the shade of these same trees. Hear their laughter as they take in the purple sweetness over and over again. Or If you want to be followed by fewer ghosts, walk down the driveway, take a left at the gravel road, visit a young tree, planted outside of the orchard by a wayward bird, reach up into its branches, pick only the ripest berries, watch the juice stain your fingers, running under your nails and cuticles, feel the overripe fruit squish beneath your feet. It is a tree unusually heavy with fruit. It is a tree you think you can call your own. Thank you. So I'll read another one from that same kind of setting. It's called How to Go to Church on a Sunday Morning. Go deeply under canopies of cottonwood. Let bee vesper and wind babble lull you along damp pathways of fern into vegetables where everything grows tender and sweet. Make of yourself an offering. Loosen the stitches of devil's darning needle and unbind bittersweet strands. Open yourself to possibility. Tie together foxtail plumes and woolly verbena, wild raspberry and sand cherry. Place them on an altar of walnut. Drink communion of dew. Wear a crown made of blued spiderwort and purple splotched lamb's quarters. Hold the land in your body. Give yourself permission to take root, to emerge green and growing. Yeah, I think I'll just read two more from this book, and then I had the one new one I'd like to try out. So this one's called How to Find True North Without a Compass. And it's a poem that takes inspiration from Theodore Roethke's The Far Field, in which he writes, dream of journeys repeatedly. Dream of the journey repeatedly. Drive down long stretches of carless highways with midnight streaming in our hair, nothing ahead and nothing behind. Let the dashboard lights be our moon glow. Let the empty sky give us no stars. We need no maps, no boundaries, no hand-me-downs. Put your hand on my knee and I'll lean my head against your shoulder. We'll keep moving through darkness until we find our way home. Okay, these last two poems are kind of about spring, and Nebraska is a very like volatile place weather-wise. It snowed a couple weeks ago, and today it's 87 degrees. And sometimes we get all the seasons in one day, it seems like. So this is kind of about that in a way, and it's called How to Survive a Nebraska Winter. Little more than 6 weeks ago, it was Valentine's Day. Nearly 30 below, doors under cabinets open, water tap, tap, tapping in the tub to prevent frozen pipes, layers of sweaters, life swaddled in blanket upon blanket. Today, the heart-shaped leaves of violets palpitate above the soil. Somehow, the daylilies have found the courage to tentatively stretch green fingers toward the sun. The robin has revealed his red breast. The rabbit hops across the backyard, no longer camouflaged by winter's muted browns. Even the flies in the windowsill, long thought to be dead, reanimate in the sun, ever buzz, buzz, buzzing. We've dared to wear short sleeves, to walk barefoot to the mailbox. Let us drink in the boldness of green and reemerge bud, bud, budding and all. Thank you. I have just one more. This one I haven't read anywhere before. It's a new piece, but it's about spring and kind of longing for spring. So I thought that was, maybe a good topic to end on. It's called Backyard Elegy. Locust limbs branch into lace above me. Squirrels perform acrobatics. A cardinal whistle plays soprano to the bike chain rhythm of passing by children. The starchy canvas of my hammock bows beneath my curves, and the sun patters across my closed eyelids. I feel the dampness of the grass. My fingers run through it like it's my lover's hair. Before you were mine, you were an alfalfa field. purple with flower, thick with the drone of bees, then a place for children upon children to play catch, red rover, kickball, a place to plant locust trees, to turn up a garden to feed a family. Now, you're a place where dandelions prosper, where the weeds of my garden run amok, where my dog chews sticks, where I read pages upon pages, where type takes flight into dreams and reveries, where my husband climbs in beside me and we nearly topple the hammock. And this late winter, early spring, I long for you, see you captured in dormancy's last embrace, tentatively green, remains the snowdrifts melting. Once the ground thaws, squirrels will give birth in the limbs will drift down pollen, the hammock's canvas will be replaced with a new one, and I will hope to return much the same, less hardened by winter, less brittle, less like the cedar leaning, honed by the northwest wind. I will be thirsty for the dew of grass, for the shovel turning the soil into rows that can only grow the good. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, Stephanie, that was lovely. And thanks for sharing a new poem with us. I felt like I was in the hammock.
Thank you.
This book, I think about how many times we say in life, I wish life came with an instruction manual, right? And Stephanie, you have certainly given us that and so much more. I mean, that mulberry tree poem is stunning. I think it might be my favorite one in the book. And I want to thank you so much for sharing these poems with us today. It was a real treat.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our next featured poet is Carol Parris Krauss, author of The Old Folks Call It God's Country, Poems of the Tar Heel and Palmetto States, where she shares her authentic, multifaceted stories of growing up in the Carolinas. Carol lives in an 83-year-old multi-generational home in Virginia. She's a Clemson graduate and a high school English teacher. She enjoys using place and nature as vehicles for various themes throughout her poetry. She was recognized as a Best New Poet by the University of Virginia, and in 2021, her book of poems, Just a Spit Down the Road, was published. You can also find her poetry in journals such as Louisiana Lit, One Art, Story South, Highland Park Poetry, and Susurrus. Please welcome Carol Parris Krauss.
Thank you. Good evening. Slight warning, I do come with a Southern accent, just a small one. Okay. I will do my best to make it coherent. Robert, Shawn, and the Poetry Box, thank you so much for putting this on. And Janet and Stephanie, I'm honored to read with you tonight. These poems are from my childhood up through, I don't want to admit how old I am. But I have gone back and forth through South and North Carolina. And when I was a young child, and we would go to see my grandparents who lived in Brevard and Asheville, North Carolina. My mother would always say, "We're going to God's country." So I thought that would be an appropriate title for this. While the poems do take place there, it's my hope that you can connect with them from some place maybe that you have been and find your own little God's country. This first poem is called Those Just Beyond the Backyard. It was originally published in One Art, and it's about my Aunt Frances. I'm pretty sure she has a little magic in her soul and maybe a little bit of a sixth sight. Okay, here we go. Aunt Frances summoned my daughter to the cusp of the yard, rattled the feed bag, and yodeled. The bluebirds, cardinals, and robin redbreast emerged, clattered the willow tree fronds and mountain laurel limbs. Two deer perched behind a mess of honeysuckle, and the albino squirrel nibbled oiled seeds from her outstretched hand. She chatted with them for a spell in her muddy brogans and worn overalls, counseled my daughter, gifted her secrets of tending those beyond the backyard, how mountain people could converse with anyone about anything, that we had the sight too. The youngest of four Raised poor, Frances married in 11th grade, reared 3 boys and a girl, watched Uncle Bill go to the paper mill for third shift his whole adult life, toting a sausage biscuit and orange knee-high in a grease-soaked paper bag. Now her husband, 2 brothers, and sister have all passed. Even Cobb the cat has gone, no longer weaves through the rows of Silver Queen. Frances still tends those beyond the backyard, summons hers who have gone, Bill, Bobby, Richard, and Ann holding Cobb, to step to the cusp of the lawn, to take her hand, stay and chat with her for a spell. Oh, thank you. Right back at you. Okay. So this poem's about my grandfather, and kind of hurts my heart a little bit. And it's called Pretty Bottles All in a Row, and also was first published in One Art. My grandparents' home was thumb smashed into the side of a mountain. The garage, a dark cave with drills, hammers, and chains crisscrossing from the rafters. Above it was a wide porch, a swing at one end, and a slider covered in Cabbage Road vinyl at the other end. It would squeak and rustle simultaneously when propelled by your feet. My family would pile into our Pontiac station wagon and traverse Seaver's Head to spend afternoons with my father's parents. After Papa passed, they told me he was an alcoholic. I don't remember that. I do recall a chest filled with carved wooden toys, his ability to tell a tale, and his laugh, half camel unfiltered, half bubbling mountain stream. I also recollect all those pretty bottles on the kitchen window ledge, some slenders, others round or just plain squatty, bright blue, ruby red, Gulf green. The sun would hit them right around noon. Each bottle glistened, throwing a rainbow against the kitchen walls. Painted, covered, what this grandchild didn't know, didn't want to know. Thank you. All right, let's see what's next. Okay. This is called Snow Only Gives Shade, and it was originally published in Boats Against the Current. In December, the water around these parts is brown, done. There is no iridescent reflection, no flash of teal, emerald. You cannot see the glint of the bluegill as it taps and punctures the surface, nor gaze the verdant spots and stripes of the hustling dragonfly, chapel window wings. At the shoreline, brown crusty fingers tipped in ice stab the water, trying to draw blood ink, script a name to the gunnel gray boat bumping against the dock. The trees keep watch on the bank, throw only inky shadows, dark whispers. Snow will fall when night tumbles in. Give a chalky blanket to this colorless scene. Cover the uncolor, knowing it holds all the hues, too stingy to give them to winter on the lake. Okay. All right, this next one, when I was at Clemson, I thought when I came home from summer, I would make a little money. So I went to work in the mill, sorting thread. It did not last very long at all. And this one was originally published in Escape into Life. And it's called What Color is Your Rainbow? The threads were endless, and each bundle of rust, blood red, stormy gray, burnt orange, and almost cotton candy had to be sorted, scanned, and boxed. Inventory at the mill was 7 days a week. Excuse me, with 8 hours strung out in front of me for June, July, and August. The colors I longed for were suntan, ocean blue, and margarita green. But my student bank account, devoid of greenbacks, silver, and gold coins, required a stint in the windless threads of cotton, polyester, and wool desperation. Youth and ignorance kept me from seeing John Deere green, baby blue, harvest gold, and lamb's milk white, like the eyes of those who spooled and sorted for a lifetime by the work whistle. Okay, so I've lived in a lot of places where there are hurricanes, and this one is called the Hurricane. Oh, and I think that it's almost my last one. The hurricane. It storms the coast, rears back its head and roars. Sour breath fog pulls its body to the sand dunes, shreds the sea oats, tosses the turtle nest, cleaves the black tops, and eviscerates the belly of town. Main Street drugstore, the courthouse, the diner, gathers prey in yellow sharp teeth and shakes its head. A spiked tail thrashes stilted cottages, flings screen doors with time. It wears itself out and retreats to the waters. Sated, the tempest slides in a bed littered with pages from books, diaries, love letters, flotsam, untethered photos of wedding, graduation, and baby's first dip in the ocean. And this last one is about my sister who lived in North Carolina, probably like the foothills of the mountain, just right outside of Greensboro, her whole life. And then one day, she and her husband, they retired and said, let's move to the beach. And they moved to Polly's Island. At Polly was sister. She earned this beach cottage, every speck of sand comforted within the slits of the worn hardwood planks. They moved this cottage from the edge of the Atlantic to 3 streets west of Highway 17, added a top floor. In her 61st year, sister left the foothills, the snow, ice, and memories, pine needles on the front lawn, as the moving truck ambled down the drive. A family of deer used to come up from the backwood and nibble on her bird feeder offerings, housed in the lowest branch of the dogwood. Now, as night creeps up from the marsh in the backyard, sister can hear a bullfrog croak, a gator's settle sounds at the edge of the lawn. Lights dim, she clambers, one hip protesting at the bottom riser, but more steps to ascend before she can rest, stretch out, and pray the day. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Carol. I just love the way the poems in this book tell all these wonderful stories. They reveal your history, and they're so perfectly rooted in place. You have a way of just transporting us, and it's like we can even find a little bit of ourselves within these poems. So thank you for sharing with us today and letting these poems become, as you say, our Carolinas too. Our final poet reading today is Janet Steward, author of Now Is What Matters, which was a finalist in the Poetry Box Chapbook Prize for 2023. Janet took advantage of retirement to write poetry, learn Spanish, and collect memories with her husband, Larry. She had decided once she wasn't destined for a long-term relationship, but fortunately, Larry convinced her to try again. Their age difference of 16 years made being a caregiver a probability. But she was surprised to find deepening intimacy, affection, and personal growth far outweigh the frustrations and loss that came with the role. Please welcome Janet Steward.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be here. Lovely poems from the other two readers. As Shawn just said, I became caregiver for my husband when memory loss joined his list of chronic conditions a few years ago. And poetry was a source of insight, courage, and comfort. And the poems in Now Is What Matters are a result of that journey. My first one has the same title as the book, Now Is What Matters. Bittersweet the days they spend together, dust devils of memory swirl. The cold approach of separation makes them wrap tightly in the down coat of tenderness. Memory lapses and things misheard erupt into laughter with the subtle ring of inevitability. Birds, young children, cloudscapes delight. Adventure takes up less and less space. They sweep away the grit brought by the wind of the approaching storm, reminding each other, now is what matters. This next one came from watching my husband interact with the toddler who lives across the shared driveway. It's called Encounter. A man sits on the porch to rest and wishes like a jilted lover for the return of healthy lungs. Across the road, a toddler explores being upright. He delights in pushing things, anything with wheels. He falls and laughs, gets up again, then scurries after a chicken. The toddler sees the gray-bearded man, moves toward him, followed by a watchful mother, balancing safety with his freedom to explore. The toddler waves, babbles his pre-speech, waves some more. The man waves back. They both smile with their whole being. The little boy's wave is as big as the fir trees towering over him, more important than anything in the man's newspaper. The man laughs, a light turns on in his eyes. They continue waving, the man laughing, the toddler babbling. For a moment, their universes merge. And this next one is called Pas de deux. It was inspired by the first time I realized the impact of cognitive changes in my husband. He came to pick me up at the airport and was rattled and confused when I met him by the security checkpoint. And then we had to search for the car. He'd forgotten where he parked it. Pas de deux. She moves with the chorus, slow, perimeter defining, languid circle. He waits in the center, making quick, anxious movements. Where is she? Where? Where? She breaks free and sweeps in for her approach, arms wide, ready for his embrace. He spins in his agitation, syncopates and stutter steps, moves close, turns away, moves closer. They turn together, searching here, peering there, settle into a pas de deux, join their movements, quiet now, resting. From here, she must lead and he follow. She lifts, guides, soothes. Here's a nice spring one. Choosing life. A rabbit nibbles the small lace leaf maple. Fresh buds swell on gnawed branch tips. The madrone bedecked in white blossoms and tender green clusters of new growth reluctantly drops last season's leaves. A begonia tuber slowly pushes up hints that a living entity resides in the pot on the porch. We delight in the miracles of spring and try not to worry about the future. Finding our way. My frustration doesn't help. I know it. You're trying to find your way, but the directional signs keep changing. The fog of age seeps in and obscures the route. What is clear is the strength of our bond. My pushing for answers makes things worse. I know it. It pleases me to see you enjoying birds in the hedge, to see you emerge sleepy-headed and soft each morning. Managing your pills and the household, cooking meals, doing laundry, these are acts of love. I savor our shared memories and your stories that I know by heart. Your history moves me. I'm honored to know it so thoroughly. I'm sorry if my frustration diminishes you. I'll keep practicing acceptance. is one of my personal favorites. An infinite mystery. I love you so much, he said. I wish I could do more with you, for you. Celebrate what is, let go of what isn't, I answered, then kissed his cheek. Our love is rich as Eggs Benedict, healthy as granola and raspberries. It glows brighter than a year's worth of full moons and reflects into every corner of life. Our love swells like the tide washing the rocky shore and turning it to soft, lustrous sand. There is a limitless stockpile of our intimacy, composting itself and making more. Don't worry, dear. Just keep loving me, and I will match you to the very angstrom. Our love will never run dry. We will swim in its ocean. And this one got written very shortly after he fell and suffered 2 compression fractures in his spine. Those were a couple tough weeks. Contentment finds me. My eyes and head ache from lack of sleep. Grumpily, I fold sheets, empty the urinal. How many times did we get up last night? Forget it. It doesn't change a thing. I scramble an egg, wrap it in a warm tortilla. The doorbell rings. I open it to brilliant sunshine that floods the room and reflects off the floor. My friend who helps me garden is on the porch, her smile an echo of the sun's radiance. We walk through the yard, marveling at the lushness of vegetables, the lavishness of dahlias. I bring my love his pills, fill his water bottle. Once again, he voices his appreciation. We take a quiet moment to watch birds enjoying blueberries, rabbits munching clover. And then, this is my last one, a roux for 2. I pull out the Dutch oven, chop the sweet things you say, add them to the pot with your caresses and a bit of oil. I stir in the comfort of your presence, let our laughter loosen the brown bits of scrumptious flavor stuck to the bottom. Then sprinkle in the salt of our tears, flakes of shared experience, a little hot pepper from our nights together. Lean over the pot, drink in the fragrance, smile all the way to my toes. Leave it to simmer and bubble, filling the house with the aroma of love. It will feed us for the rest of our lives. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. It was wonderful to be a part of this tonight.
Oh, Janet, these poems. I can't. I think I cried the first time I read the manuscript, and I'm getting all teary-eyed again. I mean, they are such a moving tribute to your marriage. And, you have, of course, the heartbreaking details of your husband's dementia, but I think the true magic and beauty of these poems lies in and how you celebrate all the lucid moments, all the glimmers of joy, such a strong, loving bond between the two of you. I mean, I just can't thank you enough for sharing these just intimate, honest, beautiful poems with us today. Just beautiful work.
Certainly my pleasure. And thank you for the wonderful process you and Robert did with me getting this published.
Oh, we loved working with you, Jan. We really did. Let's have a giant round of applause for all of our readers today. I'd like to thank all 3 talented poets, Stephanie, Carol, and Janet, and thank you, our audience, for supporting our authors and joining us for another edition of the Poetry Box Live. We'll be back next month on May 11th with 3 amazing poets, Anna Regard, Laura Sortino, and Susan Landgraf, who each have brand new chapbooks coming out soon, and they are available to pre-order for just a few more days on our website through Monday. And if you'd like to keep up to date on upcoming shows, new releases, and other publishing opportunities, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter by going to thepoetrybox.com, where you'll find a sign-up form at the bottom of each webpage. So thanks again for joining us today. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and we will see you next month on the Poetry Box Live.